First meeting, but we have food over there most importantly. We have sodas, we have coffee, help yourself. We want to recognize any elected officials, and I don't know if we have any here yet. I think there's some going to be here, but nobody yet. Okay. And any candidates. We have candidates in the room, I believe. We have one, Chris Sutton, running for sheriff, so we encourage everybody to meet with them after, question them, and get to know them. All right. Also, we have a new treasurer. Ann Thomas is no longer our treasurer. She's moved on. She has other commitments. She's not here. I believe she's coming, but just want to thank her for her time. And we have Tom Kenny, who has graciously agreed to take over the treasurer position, and he hasn't quite passed the background check yet, but and County Executive Terry Moore just walked in, so we just okay. For those of you that don't know about the Cecil County Patriots, we pretty much assume everybody does because we've been doing this for so long. We're a Tea Party group. We started in 2009, and we try to find like-minded people to work with us so we can have a stronger voice in Cecil County. We do have information. We have brochures on the table. We have a website. We have a Facebook page. We're also available for any questions. Anytime you need anything, just let us know. We always put our numbers on everything. We're looking for people to become active and involved with us because we can make a difference at the local level. And just so, I know I didn't introduce myself, I'm Donna Caldell. I'm on the steering team. This is alreasin on the steering team. Jackie Gregory, and Ron Lovis, and Kathy O'Connell, and she couldn't be here this evening. She's on vacation. So, and we also have quite a few other active members that I won't name, but we are looking for people just to get involved because we can make a difference at the local level. So, okay, what else? Okay, on the table, on your table, I have some information, and we also have some over here. But I put little note cards on the table because when our speaker comes up, I know a lot of people are going to have questions, so we'll give him a chance to speak, and then afterwards we're going to ask everybody to hold their questions so we don't interrupt the speaker. But there's one pen, I think, on every table, so you can all share it. If you have a question, you think of something, write it down so you don't forget, and thank you for that. And also we have the Maryland Shall Issue flyer on the table as well. And Al will talk a little bit about that, and I believe we have some over here. We have, again, brochures. We have bumper stickers. The bumper stickers are $3 each. We have T-shirts. They're $15. They're right up front. And there's flyers from Delegate Parrott, and just if anybody's interested, it just gives you some information on this year's legislative session and how it can affect you. So there's stuff about the gas tax, the gun bill, driver's license for illegals and repeal of the death penalty, driving laws, windmills in the ocean, and on and on. So, okay. Also tonight, for those of you that don't know, we do take donations, but all the donations tonight are going to go to Sheriff Christopher's Legal Defense Fund. So there's a donation box. If you can contribute anything, I'm sure he'd greatly appreciate it. It's going to be for his fund against the state of Delaware. And it's important that he gets support from us because this case could be setting a precedent for other states. And if you can't give tonight, but you'd like to give at some point, there's flyers on the table and there's information on where you can donate, or you can contact one of us. All right, upcoming events. Budget hearing, May 7th, which is Tuesday coming up.
Turned it off.
Did I turn it off? No, I didn't. Yeah, okay. Okay.
I know you win it.
He'll pay. Okay, the budget is available on the county website. Again, there's going to be a budget hearing Tuesday, May 7th at 7 o'clock in this building in the Elk Room. And if you're not receiving our emails, we did send the information out in an email. Turned it off again, didn't I? If anybody's interested, I can pass around a piece of paper that you can put your email address on in case you're not. But we do encourage everyone to attend because the council and the county executive needs to hear from us. So if you have some concerns, some issues, they are there. We have a lot of impact at the local level, and we encourage everybody to attend because they really need to hear from you. Okay, couple more things. some events that are coming up. Oh, the other thing, we have a town hall event coming up in June. Where's one of the flyers? Can I get one of those flyers? Okay, for our June meeting, thank you, we're gonna have a Second Amendment Town Hall. It's going to be in the Elk Room. It's going to be Thursday, June 6th. You all have flyers on the table. It's going to be from 7 to 8:30, maybe 9. We'll try and get everybody out by 8:30. And so far we have participants that have confirmed: Dan Bongino, Delegate Don Dwyer, Commissioner Rothschild, Sheriff Mike Lewis from Wicomico County, and a representative from the Institute on the Constitution. And we may have Congressman Andy Harris moderate it. We're still working with his team to try and get him down here. So I think that's all I have. I think now I'll turn it over to Al, right?
Yeah. Okay, some of you might...
Turn it off.
No. It's just finicky. We don't have your women on. I'll hold it down. Oh, this is the broken. That's what.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay, some of you may be surprised that I'm here. You can turn it off. You're so good at that. I'm supposed to be in Canada. They won't let me in, but and that is true. They had a problem with people from outside of Canada coming and taking jobs like me. Only it was done at a corporate level. 45 people were brought in, and they fired 45 Canadians, and there was a big uproar. You haven't heard it on the news, because it's not on the news. You have to go looking for it. So they stopped all work permits. So no work permits are being issued in Canada as of today. So I'm delayed until June. Okay, so that's the way things go. Okay, one thing I want to bring up, I've mentioned it before. We have now incorporation of the Second Amendment, which means it's applicable to the state. It was never applicable to the state until 2010 to the states, just like your freedom of speech was not applicable to the states and local until 1925. The same with freedom of the press. No one knows that hardly at all. They didn't teach it even when I went to school. Okay, but that was only applicable to the federal government passing laws. But now all the Bill of Rights, with few minor exceptions, are applicable to the states. Therefore, that leads into the MSI. The decision's been made not to do the petition. And I was up in arms when I heard that, but there's some good reasons, and the information is on there. I think on the tables, I think there's 8 things that are brought up. I'm just going to skim through them. I didn't realize that you can't sue while a petition is operable or approved and now going to the referendum. So you couldn't sue. You can't do them in parallel. So right away, you're throwing everything on the referendum, which is a referendum on a basic right, the Second Amendment, your right to bear arms. They're concerned that in the state of Maryland, as with other referendums last time, if you lose, that means a basic right has been voted down by the people. Not a good precedent to go to court with. So that's another concern. Another big one is money. The other side has a lot of money to fight us. And whether or not we could even get the kind of information out that's needed to be gotten out, the talking points are working very well for the other side, extremely well in Baltimore. 80% of the people in Baltimore think that that bill that was just recently passed, SB 281, was the right kind of bill. Okay, it was mentioned, or maybe you don't know about it, that the rules for the May 7th hearing are going to be that you can speak. They're going to take three resolutions that are going to be combined with the bill, the budget bill, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak on that. But they will also have, now that would be on all 4 items. You'd have to pick what you want in the 5 minutes. But also they will still have the public comment. So in essence, every person could have 10 minutes to speak, split up, okay? During public comments, you can speak on anything, including that bill or the resolutions that go with it. Okay, Commissioner Rothschild was at the Republican Club and talked about a resolution that the county would pass that would be against SB 281. That has been drafted, and now there's been an amendment offered by Alan McCarthy to do this. Now, one thing which some people won't like, you won't see the words nullification or nullify in it. The resolution is very strong. It's effectively saying nullification without using the nasty word nullification. Let's face it, it has a bad connotation. And even Rothschild has agreed that it's not the word to use. So, working around it, trying to say the same thing as what the resolution will say, and it'll be voted on the 7th as well. Let's see. Oh, you've heard about the bill for the background checks, and it was defeated, and they're going to bring it back, Toomey's bill in Manchin. One of the things that has not been on the media, and I don't understand why, not even on Fox, it sounds very good when it starts off. It says Department of Justice cannot do this, that, and the other thing. And then it says, notwithstanding. That word allows them, maybe the Commerce Department, to set up a registry for firearms or whatever. It does not stop all that from happening, the things that we're concerned about. Because that magic word, and it has a very strong legal meaning. As soon as they put that in, it effectively nullified the rest of the stuff that they had in the bill. So that's why it should have been defeated. I don't know that that's the reason why. The other thing is Schumer's bill talks about transferring weapons or trying to stop straw purchases. Well, if I own weapons and I go to Canada and I'm there for 7 days, I just made an illegal transfer to my wife. If someone comes over to my house and says, hey, you have a new .45, can I fire it? And I hand it to him, 5 years, I just violated the law. That's an illegal transfer. So this bill is very bad. It came out 10-8 out of committee. I don't know that it's changed. I couldn't find anything on it. The point is, again, the media's not talking about the negative aspects of this bill. So, the only thing that I can say, it's not going to be too good in Maryland to write your 2 senators, but I think they'll vote for it regardless. But maybe write them anyway. I have, just to let them know that you don't agree with it. So those things may come back. So next is Jackie.
Okay, I want to cover some issues, some things that have happened recently, and I want to update a little bit more on the gun issue locally. How many of you are on our email list? You receive our emails? Do most of you? Okay. If not, there is an email list going around. Please sign up, and then you can receive updates. And I want to set the record straight, and I've written down some notes here because I have a lot I want to say, and I don't want to forget anything. I addressed some of the things in an email we sent out earlier this week, but for those who may not have had a chance to read it, or maybe you don't receive our emails, I want to touch on what I addressed once again, and just discuss some other things that I think you need to be aware of. First, I know you've heard it a few times tonight, I want to encourage everyone to get involved at the local level. Rather than relying on information that we give to you or somebody else tells you, the best thing that you can do is go to the meetings. There's Citizens Corner every other week. You can go talk to our council members directly. You can ask them questions about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and actually get an answer from them, demand an answer from them. And it's a great way to find out what's going on. And since it's audio taped and on the public record, then it's a lot stronger than a private conversation. So that's the first thing I want to say. We really encourage everyone to just get involved locally. And since this group began, we have been very active at the local level. If you go on our Facebook site every week, you'll see a new tape that Al puts up there because he goes to all the meetings and videotapes them. And we're very grateful for that. And we have many other members and people who affiliate with us that attend the local meetings. And when something concerns us, such as the Second Amendment or taxes or spending or whatever it may be, we go to the meetings and we address the issues directly with our council people. We also correspond with them via phone and email. And so that allows us to know what's going on and not wonder what they're thinking or what they're going to do. We pretty much know what is happening and where they stand on the issues and their reasoning behind it. After our last meeting, where Chief Mark Kessler of Gilberton Borough spoke about a resolution passed by his local government to protect the Second Amendment, as Al already mentioned, Dr. McCarthy proposed a resolution to begin the discussion on the Maryland Firearms Safety Act of 2013 at the local level. We supported and encouraged his effort, and since we do maintain correspondence regarding our concerns with local officials, we understand what the purpose of the resolution was at that time, and knew that this was considered to be a first step in getting the ball rolling while additional measures were being investigated. I know I had some correspondence with our county executive by email, and so I was aware that they were acting on this, that they weren't just ignoring it, and that there was investigation going on. At no time was this considered to be the be-all, end-all on this issue. And I think I can confidently say, based on public comments that have been made by our county council people and what I have heard in correspondence, what they have said at meetings, I think I can confidently say that all 5 of them are supportive of the Second Amendment, strong supporters of the Second Amendment, and are interested in doing what they can do to preserve this right for us, for the citizens. At our last meeting, Dr. Alan McCarthy attended, and a big issue we discussed then, which of course has kind of been squashed now, was the petition. And we were concerned about the short amount of time we had to gather signatures for such a big thing. So he was interested in helping facilitate the process, getting the word out publicly, and that was one of the reasons that he took the bull by the horns and drafted the initial resolution. I don't know, how many of you attended the last Republican Club meeting where Commissioner Rothschild presented? Okay, good. Then you probably saw that there were, Councilman Hodge was there, our county executive, and also Councilman McCarthy. And Councilman McCarthy was actually very vocal in his public support for the ideas that Rothschild was presenting. And he expressed an interest in incorporating those ideas into the resolution. And this Tuesday, he proposed the amended resolution, and he struck out the content with the petition, since that's no longer relevant, and added much of the language that Rothschild presented at the meeting. And from the very beginning, Dr. McCarthy, who I know is a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, has been attacked continually by the local Campaign for Liberty organization. He was initially attacked for proposing a resolution instead of an ordinance, and I have the email here, and I just want to, if I can find it here. I don't know if you received this email, but it says, Cecil County C4L has been working to get language for an ordinance that would nullify the Maryland Firearms Safety Act of 2013 in Cecil County, underlined, not a resolution. The difference between an ordinance and a resolution is quite substantial. You see, an ordinance is a local law that is part of the Cecil County Code. A resolution is nothing more than a non-binding, unenforceable statement made by the county council. This begs the question, why even bother? Here's why. Politicians often use resolutions for political cover on tough topics. How do they do that? They pass a resolution and bank on the idea that you will not be smart enough to realize that they actually didn't do anything to address the issue you asked them to, which is the case with McCarthy's resolution proposal. And then it says that our county leaders were MIA while O'Malley's gun grab was being considered, and in classic fashion, they are now rushing to find a way to capitalize on public opinion for political gain. This is exactly what Mr. McCarthy's resolution is about, publicizing a meaningless proposal to try to score political points. And I know that that was not the case, and I wanted to address that. The reason for the proposal of the resolution was that the resolution is actually the correct way, and legal analysts have talked about this and have come to a consensus that that is the way to go. And actually our speaker last month, that's what their borough did. They passed a resolution. So from a legal standpoint, he did the right thing. And Campaign for Liberty has now agreed with that, but didn't retract their statement of attack. And they did suggest that our council members were missing in action on the issue throughout the debate in Annapolis. But I don't know if you know this, but in March they voted unanimously to oppose it, and they did send a letter signed by our council president and county executive, and they didn't just say they didn't like the bill, they cited the fact that it was not constitutional. So they did put out a strong statement, and it was a unanimous vote. Campaign for Liberty also suggested that McCarthy's motivation, and I think this is what bothered me the most, for submitting the resolution was to play politics so he could use it for political gain. The problem is they had not contacted him about this. They didn't ask him about it. They didn't find out what his intention was, what he planned to do in the future. They put it out there without doing adequate research. And if you know Dr. McCarthy, first and foremost, he is a businessman. He's not a politician. At the last Republican Club meeting, one of the steering team members from Campaign for Liberty sat less than 10 feet away from Councilman McCarthy, heard his public statements to Commissioner Rothschild in support of what was being presented, the ideas presented, but didn't even bother to go up to him and ask him about his position face to face or express his concerns. It was just done in an email. And following that meeting, Councilman McCarthy did amend his resolution incorporating the language. Unfortunately, the attacks, if you've been on Facebook, you have seen that the attacks have continued. And from the beginning, they have tried to create the impression that some of our council members would have to be forced and dragged kicking and screaming along to take action on the Second Amendment, and that only by their actions would this be accomplished. But that's not really an accurate portrayal of the situation. Based on discussions I've had with elected officials, along with statements I've heard them make at many public meetings. And the maligning of Dr. McCarthy's character is unacceptable. And it's really important that adequate research is done and facts are gathered before blanket statements are made about people's character. Putting out partial information or making up the story as you go along is not a way to gain credibility. There's a tactic that's being used. It's called, I don't know if you've heard of this, confrontational politics, and it's basically Saul Alinsky for conservatives. This was written by a conservative. The problem is when the guns are turned on the people that support the same position as you, or on other issues, they support you 95% of the time. And this has happened previously as well on other emails, on the tier map situation where an email was put out that just was inaccurate. And in fact, our county is the only one so far in the state of Maryland where property rights have been protected under SB 236. There is not one other county that has done that. And whether you agree with the method or not, no other county has done anything. They've ceded their rights to the state. So at least we have our property. We have people who are interested in protecting property rights in our state. There are a couple other things that have been put out I want to set straight as well. One post on their website, their Facebook site, claimed that our organization did not support the gun rally in Rising Sun at Delegate Rudolph's office, when, if you attended the last couple of meetings, you know we advertised it in an email, we advertised it on our Facebook, we announced it at our meeting, and people from our organization attended it and participated in it. So we did support that event, so that was not accurate. It was also stated that we were opposed to nullification of the Maryland Firearms Safety Act of 2013. And if you attended our last meeting and heard Chief Kessler's presentation, you also know that that's not true. Our organization supports all measures to protect the Constitution. Unfortunately, when these things are posted on Facebook, I haven't been able to respond directly. And the reason is because I've been blocked from the Facebook site. So, as have some other people. And I want also to tell you why that happened, how it came about. How many people here are familiar with Agenda 21? Okay. Or sustainable development, smart growth, has to do with property rights. If you are not familiar with that, go to our website. Richard Rothschild is a great source of information on that as well. Our website is cecilcountypatriots.com. We have a section devoted strictly to Agenda 21, sustainable development on there, and there's a lot of information available there, videos and articles and that sort of thing. And locally, once I found out, started learning about Agenda 21, I was very interested in it, and I started researching who has been advancing that agenda locally. And what happened was, in the course of the research, we made a discovery that the leadership of C4L doesn't want to address and doesn't want people to know. In September, we found out that not only has the Maryland State Coordinator for Campaign for Liberty, Ted Patterson, been actively involved in promoting sustainable development, Agenda 21, for the past 7 years, his involvement continues this day through something called Complete Communities in Delaware. And he is also the communications co-chair for the American Planning Association in Delaware. Okay? And Complete Communities is based on Santa Monica, the Santa Monica ICLEI model. And Ted Patterson, he works as a central planner, that's his job, creating sustainable development plans, leading visioning sessions for the general public to market the plan, and then working to get these plans passed by local governments for implementation. If you've done any research for Agenda 21, you know how the process is. You get the plan together, and then you take it to the community, and you have it organized in such a way that they believe it's visioning. They believe that they are actually making the decisions, which really just to lead them on to a preconceived plan. It's called the Delphi technique. He also helped found the Cecil Land Use Alliance, a local smart growth organization. He included sustainable development and smart growth on his platform when he ran for delegate in 2010 and received recognition for his promotion of smart growth while he volunteered with the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy. And we have relationships with some of the patriot groups in Delaware who have been working with fighting Agenda 21 there, so they know firsthand what this is like. There is a substantial amount of information I could go into regarding his involvement in this, but for the sake of time, I just want to let you know I have a lot of documents I brought with me in case you are not sure where I'm getting my information from. I have Facebook posts from him, I have things from the University of Delaware website, academic papers he's written, which have served as the basis for things like Complete Communities. I have a newsletter from the American Planning Association, the Delaware chapter here, where he is mentioned as the communications co-chair. I have information on the Cecil Land Use Alliance. I have information on, more information on Complete Communities, and some other posts on here. And this is only part of what I have. I could bring in a lot of other things, but this gives you the idea. I'll be happy to speak to anybody about this after the meeting. If you're interested in seeing the information, getting the information about it, I'll answer any questions you may have. But as a result of this information, when we found this out, we contacted some of the Campaign for Liberty leaders in Harford County that we know, and we set up a meeting, and we met with them. And I honestly thought that they probably didn't know about this, and that when they found out that they would not be happy about it. But when they were presented with this information, we were told that it didn't matter and it was none of our business. We were also asked what we wanted to do to make us, like what we wanted to see happen to make us shut up about it, to be quiet about it. I expressed some concern, as the rest of us did as well, with the credibility of the organization and the fact that it's very frustrating when, as a conservative, you're out there and you're fighting something, and then you have someone who's supposed to be on your side and they're undermining it on the other side. They're playing both sides. So that was a big issue. But they didn't want to hear about the volunteer work. They just said, this is his job, this is what he's doing, it doesn't matter, leave it alone, don't talk about it. And they didn't want to see any of the information. I could say and I think the other people left the meeting shocked and disappointed. And the leadership has tried to minimize Ted's role in Agenda 21, but as I said, I have a lot of documentation spanning the course of several years. It's not just his job, it's things that he's volunteered to do. After I questioned this on Facebook, I was blocked from their website, and different things have been posted up there to try and undermine our credibility. And just so you know, my intention in bringing this up now, this has been ongoing for a while. It's not a comfortable situation. And I understand as a whole that Campaign for Liberty has a lot of the majority of their members are sincere people that are fighting for the same exact things we are. They are on the same side of the issue. And my guess is that the majority of them have no idea that this is even an issue, that this has even happened. And they probably, when they get the emails, they believe that they're well researched, that they are based on fact, that the information is true. So that's why I just stress it's really important for all of us to be aware of what's going on, and I just want to set the record straight as far as we're concerned. In case you see some of the things that have spilled over on Facebook, I want you to know what is happening and why it's happened. And again, if you have any questions or comments or want to see any information, I'd be happy to talk to you after the meeting. Okay? Thank you. Yes.
Is Ted still sitting on the Republican Central Committee?
Yes, he is.
Oh.
He's a secretary.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Thanks for your hard work.
I'll turn it over to Donna now.
Okay, thank you. All right, now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Sheriff Jeff Christopher. Sheriff Christopher is the Sheriff of Sussex County, Delaware. He has more than 26 years of experience in law enforcement and has worked with Caroline County, Maryland Sheriff's Department as well. He has made headlines recently for being proactive in defending the role of the elected sheriff at a time when Delaware Attorney General Beau Biden has attempted to strip elected sheriffs of their arresting power, thereby putting all of the power of law enforcement in the hands of police chiefs who are appointed by the government instead of being directly accountable to the citizens who elect them. The legal battle he is currently engaged in is not just important to Delaware, but to other states as well, because the outcome could set a legal precedent which other states will follow. Sheriff Christopher is also part of CSPOA, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, which was founded by Sheriff Mack. Sheriff Mack has been helping to spread the word about the legal battle which Sheriff Christopher is engaged in. Just as a reminder, all donations tonight will go to Sheriff Christopher with his legal battle. In addition, no cards have been provided for you to write questions you may have during Sheriff Christopher's presentation. We ask that you save your questions until the end of the talk. Please give a warm welcome to Sheriff Jeff Christopher.
Thank you. I'm humbled to be here. I love Cecil County, the mountains.
Mountains of Conowingo.
You got to understand that in Sussex County we have the landfill. That's as high as it goes in Sussex County. I'm here to speak to you tonight about the issue of the importance of the sheriff and what role the sheriff has to and must play in the tyrannical challenges that we face. Not only from the federal government, but our own state government and county councils and town councils. How many of you, by a show of hands, are concerned about the direction of our government today? Wow. You guys are keeping up with the Joneses on this. The fact is that we have a government that's being inhabited by people who either don't understand the rights and values of our Constitution, or they are doing this on purpose. And the question is, why, you ask yourself this, why would people who are supposedly learned, trustworthy, and more often than not elected by us to do this and represent us in a government that would be tyrannical and in our faces with some of these mandates and some of these things that are coming down the pipe? And we've looked at this, and of course we've talked about this to many different people across the United States. And the one common theme that I get and that I understand, we have two challenges. Number one is we've been asleep for a long, long time, and we need to admit that to ourselves, that our government didn't get this way just overnight. It's gotten this way because we've tolerated it over and over and over again. When people come in, the baton is handed from one person to the other person and say, this is how we do it. This is how things are done. And of course, most of the time, we're not privy as citizens as to what is said and what is decided at those levels, because it's usually behind closed doors, is it not? We expect as people that they reveal to us and be open as a government and tell us these things. In fact, they don't tell us anything. In fact, most of them that we deal with today, from the permits office all the way up to the governor's office, believe, and there's a consensus, but they believe that it's none of your business. And that, folks, is standing in the lap of the constituency, which is you, to slap you in the face. And you should be totally incensed by it. And where do we go from there, you ask? Well, it's this simple. You should be stark mad at what's going on underneath of your nose to basically abrogate the rights of your children, even yourself, and your grandchildren, and so on and so forth, because they are headed straight back to Egypt. They're going back to slavery, is what's going to happen. And most of the time, you talk to a young person on the street, and you ask them something about Second Amendment, for instance. They either have no opinion, or they just don't understand what they're saying, and they'll say something like, oh, I think gun control is really good. In fact, I watched something on YouTube the other day where a gentleman had intentionally gone out with a clipboard in California. He stood on the beach, and he was basically asking people to come up and sign it. And he showed on this video both young and old walk up and say, we're basically here to repeal the Second Amendment. We don't really need it. The cops can take care of things. We don't need guns. We're going to surrender our guns because we believe that the only people that need guns are the cops. Well, people were walking up going, nodding their head and agreeing with what this guy was saying. Of course, he was doing it in jest to prove a point. People don't get it. They're not aware of what's going on because they're not paying attention. What we have to do, and I speak very frankly when I speak. I'm one of those people that kind of in your face tell you what I think it is.
You're in the right place.
And that's what we need. I think you guys are the backbone, and I've been all the way out to Idaho, Washington State, California, all the way back down the southern corridor, back into the mid-Atlantic, and the one common theme again that I've seen is you guys have the backbone, and that's why you're here. Tenacity is one thing that you need to do because you need to bombard these elected officials to make sure that they understand. Do not be turned away by any of the responses. If they say it's none of your business, you say, well, I'm breathing air, and as long as I'm breathing in and out, it's my business because you work for me. I'm the CEO. And you get that attitude about yourself to any public official, any elected official. I don't care if he's a bureaucrat or not, he works for you or she works for you. For anybody to accept the idea that they don't owe you an answer is ludicrous. Follow through. Do not be intimidated. Stand your ground because you have every single right. And what we're going to come to in this country is, I fear, a revolution. You are the headline of the advancing troops. Look at yourself and look around to the people that are sitting next to you because you are the ones who are going to birth a new nation. And that is the intolerance of these advancing tyrannical attitudes. We have to stand our ground. Now, a sheriff. Why, you ask, out of the 3,300 or 3,077 counties that we have in the United States, why do we have 94 or 95% of those sheriffs as elected officials in the county? Does anybody know basically what the federal government calls the sheriff? What do they refer to the sheriff as in correspondence and letters and what have you? Does anybody know the acronym? Anyone? It's called the CLEO, Chief Law Enforcement Officer. Whenever you see something like an FFL application, on I think it's line 13 or 14, it says, to the CLEO. And it's addressing the application or the person filling out the application to turn it in to the CLEO. Now you say, well, that could be something other than the sheriff, and in fact, it has become that because of the tolerance that we've given. The Chief Law Enforcement Officer, bar none, is the one you selected to be the Chief Law Enforcement Officer, and that is your elected sheriff. You ask yourself, why is the sheriff the CLEO? And why not the colonel of the state police? Why not the chief of police in a county police system? Because he's not elected. It's that simple. Now, Does anyone know what the government's referred to in the business form, what they're referred to as compared to what you are in the private form? Anyone know? Corporation. The town, the county, the state is a corporation. Like a business, just like a business, only it's not private. That's why you have accessibility to every single level of what they produce. Nothing is supposed to be secret, because who pays for it? You do. It's your money. The government has no money. They're broke. And they're fighting us, those who would stand up and say, wait a minute, you're going off the wrong track here, and you're going way in a direction that you're going out of your way and making statements. And in fact, the arrogance has come to the point where they're saying, hey, guess what? It's none of your business. Well, education and knowledge is power. That's why I stand here and go around and speak to people just like yourself. The more you know, the more they fear you. Because if they come out and say something that's confusing, who's the author of confusion? Satan himself. Right? And if he wants to confuse someone, he just barrages you with all these different facts and what have you, which amounts to nothing. Not even a hill of beans. Is that a Cecil County saying? It was a Caroline County saying when I was growing up. But the fact of the matter is, folks, that you are already empowered. You have the ability because you are the constituency. You are the people. And I've gone to the tea parties and I've listened and I've spoken and what have you. And what I see is people are filling up with knowledge, but they're frustrated because nothing's happening. It seems like these guys out here, the bulldozer, are still moving. So how do we stop it? Well, I asked that question to a tea party in Illinois. And I said, how do we stop this? And one guy raised his hand and he said, we march on Washington. And I said, okay, anybody else? And I was looking for another answer, but everyone seemed to nod their head and thought that was a great idea. And I said, well, how many think that if 5 of you went to Washington, D.C., and you stood on the apron or you stood on the mall there and you raised your flags and you said, we're not going to take it anymore, how much attention would you get? All right? How much attention has it gotten with 1 million people standing there and saying, promoting a certain agenda to tell the public officials that they must turn around and go the other way?
Didn't work.
Zero. They don't care about whether you march or not, because the power is not in the way you express yourself in the Washington, D.C. mall. Let me tell you where it exists. It exists in the hearts and minds of each one of you sitting right here, holding accountable the next level reachability, the one you have the influence over. How many of you know when you're talking to your kids on the phone and you're basically extrapolating the rules and you're saying, okay, listen, son, daughter, you're talking to your kids, I need you to be home at a certain time. And by the way, this is what you're going to do. Here's the rules of the car, here's the rules of this and that. How many of you know that it has more influence when you're standing there looking at them than talking on the phone? Why is that? It's accountability. There's something about the way God created us is that when the son or daughter is looking at you, there's some sort of a guilt mechanism, or at least a control mechanism that you as a parent hopefully have and haven't lost over that individual whom sometimes you claim as your son or daughter. I do the same thing. I look at my son who's now taller than I am, and I look at him and I said, you know, I still work part-time at a funeral home, and those vaults that we put in, sometimes we put them in at midnight. All I got to do is ask you to come out and help me out, and you just won't go home. And the look that I get from him is like, and he kind of like, you're just kidding, Dad. I was like, well, we used to do it all the time. You know, I don't know how many kids are out there in that cemetery. And then he starts looking at me like I'm crazy, and that's exactly what I don't want him to lose. I want him to hang on to that. But he knows more about me than I think he knows, but he's not quite sure yet. So as long as you have that little bit of an edge, that's the edge that you got to have over elected officials. You have to make them think, not so much that you're crazy, but that you're determined, that you're not going away, that you're here for the duration. The sheriff, as an elected official, answers to who? Speak up. Tell me what you think. Answers to you.
Yeah.
Only to you. In the primary sense, he answers only to you because you are the constituency. Now, is he subject to the laws and what have you, the enforcement of laws and whatever that's created by the legislature? Absolutely. It's to protect this guy from intruding on this guy. A constitutional right is only good until you violate someone else's constitutional right. You agree with that? You understand that? Basically, if you own a yard and you give me permission to walk across that yard to get to the mall, you can say, yeah, Jeff, you can walk through that yard if you want to, no problem at all. And then I do something to offend you, like make weird sounds when I go through there at 12 o'clock at night. Can you revoke that permission from me if you own that property? You certainly can. The Constitution is a rights and privilege document. Is our rights granted by the Constitution?
No.
No. They're natural law. It's given by God himself. So that's one of the things that I'll steadfastly say, don't give up hope. I know a lot of people are discouraged. I've talked to some of you already, and you say we've lost the fight and what have you. That's not true. We have not lost this. Because, first of all, the way our law is built, there is such thing as repeal, and there's such thing as regain, and we can do that. It's just a matter of knowledge and spreading that knowledge to the people who don't know. Now, they're saying that there's more than 50% of the people out there who don't know. So, can you imagine if you were a salesman and you were trying to sell something and you had that 50% out there, but you thought, well, these guys are uneducated, I can sell sailboats in Arizona to these people because they don't rightly know. But if you go out and you talk to them and you tell them how it affects them personally, and you educate them about what is going on with this tyrannical action and how it will affect them. Now, what fight do we have on our hands? The fact that our own education system, from this height up to this height, is teaching them that we're crazy. What we believe in is wrong. So, 200 years is down the tubes, correct? But in reality, it's the same tenacity that you use to teach your children is the same tenacity that you need to go out here and teach the young people and other people. So the biggest challenge that I would say, that I would give you, is put something on a calendar that each day you contact at least 3 people. Try. And to have those persons that you contact another, promise them. You say, remember the accountability? If you can do it to their face, are they more accountable to you? Yes, they are. Go right to their face. Look at them in the eye. I'm holding you, sir, accountable for contacting 3 people tomorrow. And the only reason I'm asking you to do it is because I like you. We're friends. And besides that, if you don't do it, you're going to have to look at my face and tell me to my face that, are you a Christian? All right? Tomorrow I'm going to say, are you a Christian? And the next day I'm going to say, are you a Christian? So you can't lie. I've got you now. You're done. Because the next day I'm going to say, did you tell 3 people today? And you're going to go, one of those gas pain kind of thing. You're going to say, what can you say? The accountability works face-to-face more so than it does on the phone. So if you can, as patriots, get out there and tell other people, if you're in the line, how many of you hate to talk to people that are strangers standing in a store or whatever? Or even the clerk, the checkout clerk? Anybody? Anybody see that? Get rid of that. You can't afford to have that. You have to be able to say, hey, you know what? Did you hear about the Cecil County Patriots? No, what's that? Well, that's something that's an organization of people that are concerned about their rights. Are you concerned about your rights? Well, not really. Oh, you're not. You have kids? Most of the time they go, yeah. Your grandkids? Yeah. Yeah. So you want your kids and your grandkids to be slaves. Well, slaves to who? Slaves to the government. Because that's what's coming. And then you say, knowledge is power. Did you know that? And they go, no. So you have no power, right? Well, I didn't know about this. And I've done it hundreds of times at Walmart. It's fun at Walmart. Try it at Walmart every time you go to Walmart. Because you get these looks going, they're like, can we help you find something on the shelf or anything? So, and I say what I'm seeking is not on the shelf. What I'm seeking is for you to be understood as to what your rights are and what you can do to help yourself. I'm not selling a religion. I'm selling you the idea of preservation for yourself and for your children. You've got a great product. It is the best product known to man, and that is freedom. Besides life itself, it's freedom. Don't you agree? You know, sell it. Put it out there. What is the role of the sheriff as an elected official by the people? Now, when you bring in the term elected, what is the word that kind of comes to mind? Starts with a T. I'll give you all a hint. The next letters R. The next one's U. What is it? Trust. Should we trust all of our elected officials?
No.
Should we?
Oh, should we? Yes.
All right.
Should be able to.
If that person were accountable in the Christian sense, should be no problem, right? Because if I go to him and I say tomorrow, did you tell 3 people yesterday? You know, what's he going to think in his mind? Oh, and watch the body language, because all during my career, that's what I love to do with the bad guys. Did you sell that guy dope? I mean, you just handed him a green leafy substance, and he handed you $10. Now, you know, I have a hard time seeing sometimes, but, you know, I was standing 25 feet away from, in uniform, which basically comes down to the idea that you're stupid or you're blind, one of the two. You know, did you sell him to, they're doing all the cracking of the back and the neck and everything, trying to get out of. Now, you know, what is it that holds that person accountable to me when I'm standing there? What is it? It's guilt. We all have it. God gave it to every single one of us. Do you know when you're doing wrong? All right? You know when you're doing wrong? Chris, you know when you had too many donuts, right? You pick up that third donut, you're going, I'm not going to do it. Of course, I always just go ahead and do the third one. I do it on the fourth one, though. It's the guilt process that's built in every single one of us that every single elected official has also, but they have learned how to control that guilt response. They learn how to do it. Now, the first response they give you is they ignore you. How many have been ignored by an elected official before? Doesn't that just burn you right up? Well, what you do is you step in front of them. You don't touch them, you just step in front of them. Sir, you're not going anywhere until you answer my question. Oh, sir, you're not going anywhere until you answer my question. You know, now, and he'll start to say, well, you're harassing me. No, I'm not harassing you because I'm your constituent. I voted for you, and you are supposed to be accountable to me. Look me in the eye and tell me why you did what you did. Why did you do it? Am I intimidating to you?
Not right now.
No. If I said, why did you do it? Why did you do it? Because why? Because is not an answer. Why did you do it? Yeah. You stay right on them and you get eye contact. You know, let them smell your breath if you have to. You know?
So eat garlic.
For some of us, it'll get the attention right away. Let them know that you're here. And then when you walk away, remember, when you walk away from a person, the body language is a great thing. When you walk away from a person, can you intimidate them walking away? Yeah, it's by what you say. You look at them like, and you walk. We've had our conversation, and you're choosing to ignore me, and I go. and you look at him, no smile, you just kind of look at him and say, I'm watching you. And I'm about to be in a big meeting, 200-300 people coming. I'm watching you. You know, and what are they thinking about when you go away? Either you're crazy. But what are they thinking about deep down in their heart? Are they swallowing hard? Remember that response you get when you're scared? You swallow. That's one of the first physiological responses when you're scared. You swallow hard. Then you become nervous. And then your blood pressure goes up. These kinds of things are what you want to do to affect those people. Do it nicely, do it calmly, but have an effect. Have an effect on them. They need to have that effect upon them because you have to somehow get that guilt response back out of them. Otherwise, they are just a stone cold mechanism that are in government that will continue to ignore you. Now, why don't we march on Washington, D.C.? Because it does no good. That's already been mastered. In fact, if Washington, D.C. is not so far corrupt, God owes Sodom and Gomorrah a big apology. And this is where we're going with our idealisms. We're saying, okay, well, maybe we can affect by the show of force of a lot of people coming, a million people, going to show up. In fact, I don't think there's ever been a Million Man March actually reach a million. When you look at the mall itself, it looks like it could hold a lot of people, but when you put 100,000 people in that mall, it's crowded, folks. I've been there. The idea is to go to the people that are first accountable to you. You all know your officials by first name, second name? That's the secret right there. Get in their face, be on their back every day, call them every day. They hate it. They hate it. They hate it. This guy is now, if there's one person that does it, then they can deal with that person. If she's calling every day, oh, that's that lady from Cecil County. She's one of those right-wing dingbat Cecil County patriots. And you should say, and proud of it. But when you call, and then you call, and then you call, and then you call, you get what's called a robocall going with different voices. They're looking at you going, wow, what's going on here? Different numbers. Why do they block one number that comes in multiple times? Because they think they can do away with that one particular pressure. And they think they're betting on the fact that there's only one person that has the time and the energy to call them. Right? So if you guys got together and made some promises together and said, hey, let's go call Senator so-and-so or Councilman so-and-so. Where's my councilman at?
You got an executive.
Executive. Where's my executive at?
And I appreciate everything you say.
So don't call her.
See how easy to get them to conform? I haven't even said her name yet, and she already knows what's going on. How much do you appreciate your constituency calling time after time after time after time after time?
It can be difficult.
Very
I'll be
difficult.
honest.
It's a stressful thing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's very stressful, especially when they're in opposition of where you stand on an issue. Now, that's the key. If your elected official is standing in the opposition of you, the conservative thinker, is this country a Christian-founded country? Okay, why should we give up that situation? Why should we give up that stance? Should we?
No.
No, because, listen, we're all made the same. We're all made in God's image, are we not?
Yes.
Inside and out. Right? It's the inside that really matters as to what is the old saying? You can tell a person character by what they do in the dark or by themselves. You can tell their personality by what they do in front of other people. Right? So, do we want honest people in government? Do we want accountable people in government? Do we want them to listen to us and respond to our wishes and wills? Well, what they're responding to today is the younger generation that they dictated as a train-up category for these kids that are coming out. They don't know. They don't know. We had a situation where a father came in, was called in by the principal, and he said, your son's wearing an offensive shirt. And it was a Second Amendment shirt. I support the Second Amendment. Of course, we've had like 20 or 30 of those across the country here lately. This father was listening to the principal, vice principal is what it was, I think is what his title was. And he says, and he was a military veteran. And he said, I fought overseas to ensure that right of free speech. Who are you? Were you in the military? And of course, he was right in his face. Remember the accountability? Were you in the military? Did you risk your life and put your life on the line for everybody, including you? Did you put your life on the line and say, I am fighting for people that don't even know, that hate my guts, so that they can tell me off when I come home? That's why we honor our soldiers. By the way, is any veterans in here? Hoorah! Thank you for serving. If there's a foundation to a house of America, you guys are it. And your blood and sweat and your tears are the mortar. And I thank you and I love you for what you did. My father, same way, died in World War II because of his injuries. Because he loved people. And if you didn't love people as made in God's image, then you would not be sitting in this room. You'd be somewhere at home watching Jersey Shore or whatever they call that show. You are the cream of the crop. And you have to continue to say that to yourselves, because what you have to realize is you're fighting against a huge giant of power that we empower by our money and our negligence of paying attention to what they're doing. So there's a great big bulldozer in a small little area. What do we do to recollect it? And that's what I'm going to emphasize right now. A sheriff at each county level is elected for you and for your purpose, and he is the only elected law enforcement official in this country. Do you realize that? The only elected law enforcement person that you have to protect you is the sheriff. Now, what's the difference between a chief of police and a sheriff?
Appointed versus elected.
Who works for the corporate? First answerable to the corporate is the chief of police. Who works for the people?
Sheriff.
First answerable to who?
People.
The people. Now, is there a separation between the corporate and the people? Absolutely. What's the first and most primary role of government or the corporate?
Sustain corporations.
No, protect the people.
Well, sustain the government is a liberal. They want to sustain themselves. But what is their real first purpose? Protect the people and the property. Yeah, get reelected. I get. There's one in every crowd. There's one in every crowd. She's getting back at me for getting in her face there a few minutes ago. The fact is, the sheriff is different because you elect him. He works first for the people. Now, has anybody ever heard the word interposition before? Who has? Who hasn't? Don't be afraid. Raise your hand. You're among Cecil County country hicks. We don't know everything. It's all right. Because I'm Caroline County country hick. You know what I'm saying? If you understand the role of an interpositioner, would those of you who raise your hand, you know what it is. Would you consider a soldier an interpositionary position or an interpositionary figure?
No.
You would not?
Between the enemy and the people.
Why would you not?
Because they answer to the hierarchy of whoever they, but they swore to the Constitution.
That's right. In theory, the soldier works for the corporate. So does the chief of police. What mechanism do you have as a body of people to ensure that they don't? There's only one. And it used to be a big hinge, and now it's a very weak hinge. And that is the Constitution and the oath of office.
Right.
How many of you know that every police officer in the country, every soldier, takes the same exact oath? To uphold
And defend.
and defend. Those of you soldiers in here, remember that? The Constitution of the United States, and of course, if you're a state officer, which is every sheriff is a state officer, even though they're county employed and the regime is the county that they control, they're a state officer because they're sworn in by the state constitution. You know, that more so in Maryland. They have that state, they enjoy that position of being a state officer. So, are they answerable to the oath of office that they give? Absolutely. Therein lies the target that you have upon every single sheriff in this state or in this country. Because they stood before God, they put their hands. Remember that guilt thing I was telling you about? They put their hands on the Bible. Some of them did not. Some of them refused to do it, unfortunately. But the guilt mechanism that you have there is to say, you stood there, sheriff, and you put your left hand on that Bible, and you raised your right hand before God and to God, and you pointed to God, and you said, I will defend and uphold the Constitution and serve the public and serve the people who entrusted me to this office. Right? Is that a good thing to go at them with? Absolutely. Didn't they state it with their mind? Is that important in court today? Could it convict you and put you up the pokey for the rest of your life, what you say? Right? So our word's still important. Our stance is still important. If it's important in the very court by which you could be convicted or freed, either one, then it's more so important to the constituency and face-to-face correspondence every day. That's why we're not supposed to lie. That's why we're supposed to tell the truth. Because the truth will set you free. And are we telling the truth? Our stance as Tea Party members and conservatives, are we telling the truth?
Yes.
Are we lying something to push our agenda?
No.
Okay, why are we so incensed when politicians lie to us? We know politicians don't lie too much, but whenever they do, they don't lie. What's that?
We have character.
Because they're going against the very nature that your heart beats and says, wait a second, that's a lie because... And oftentimes, I've heard it said by one politician in Delaware, he says, A lie is not a lie unless you have knowledge that it is a lie. Doesn't that sound a little bit like it depends on what is?
Yeah.
Joe Biden?
He is a scampi of Joe Biden. Joe Biden asked me, he said, why would you want all this negative attention? And I said, because it's the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. I said, you, sir, said to me a long time ago, was you support your sheriffs in your state. And yet you let something like this happen. Why? Because he doesn't care. He's got an agenda, and when you have an agenda, you will do anything and say anything to get your agenda across, especially if it benefits you monetarily or power. And their reckoning of things is knowledge power too?
Yes.
But what they have, you got to remember, is they have to remember the lie they told before, right? Because they'll come back and tell you something else that's completely different from what they told you last week. That's why it's important for you to be very vigilant and write things down and listen to what they say. Take a tape recorder if you have to. Put it in your pocket. You're not there to prosecute them yet. But you can say, hey, remember, know the laws. Know the laws and what your limits are as far as the laws are concerned. In Delaware, I can record anybody.
Not in Maryland.
Now, check it out in Maryland. Can you record somebody if it's a non-prosecutory event?
No.
No?
3 states you can't.
Make sure you let them know you're being recorded.
Right.
Tell them you're being recorded. I'm holding you accountable. Will they lie then? Darn
Yes.
Skippy. Because what are they doing? They're protecting your agenda. They will not flow off of that agenda in order to appease what you're saying, because they look at you as one person. Now if you're 100 standing in front of that person, they act a little different, don't they? They kind of go 1, 2, 3, 4. They're counting it and they're saying, okay, what can I say? Now they're looking at specifics and they're looking at statistics and they're going, okay, 100 people here could really do a lot of damage with regard to me getting elected again. But of course, they know most of the time it's the right-wing crazy Cecil County Patriots again. Well, all the better, all the better. If you are engaged in the very fact that you're telling those 3 people every day. 3 people is all it takes. Does everybody just sit home and watch TV and don't do anything else?
Mhm.
Text it. Email it. Do whatever you can. Let everybody know. It's important that we grow. 2 things we got to watch out for is kids in school. We got to do everything we can to make sure. How many of you know about Common Core? Who thinks it's a good thing? We had a elected official by the name of Ruth Briggs King. Anybody ever heard of that person? Ruth Briggs King stood up in front of the 38th District a couple weeks ago and said, I think Common Core is a great thing. This is what we got to... Now, she's talking to a bunch of supposedly conservative Republicans. And I'm sitting there listening. And then her opponent, as the vice chair for the Republican Party in the state of Delaware, she had a representative there, but she has told me, she says, I detest Common Core because we don't... She says, what is conservative government about? It's local government, right? Remember that accountability? That's how the will of the people gets done at the local level. And I'm going to expand on that in a second, through the Office of Sheriff especially. So if all of you walked into her office over there, would she be inclined to listen to you? Pay attention to what you're saying? Now, what they're saying, which I believe is half-truth as well, on the other side is they're saying, well, we're hearing from constituencies, we're hearing from people that don't want what you want. They want something different. They want gun control. Now, my next question is always this. How do you know they're an informed voter? And they don't. That's what you can say. I am an informed voter. Because that's the other side doesn't. And they're using them. Why are they using them? Because there's no defense. Why do they have to say, so-and-so was a 19-year-old guy over here. He doesn't have to answer for him because basically the 19-year-old guy that gave him his opinion can't remember the meeting and greeting that he had with the official to begin with. Because they don't care. It's like, gun control, that's a great thing. Let's see, let's take away First Amendment. If you say, what is the First Amendment? They don't know. They have no clue. They don't know what they're talking about. And I love the reporters. They come up and say, well, why are you taking such a harsh stance? They do that in the News Journal to me. comes up and says, why are you taking such a harsh stance against anybody, you know, what the rest of Delaware wants? I said, what do you mean the rest of Delaware? Are you talking about 30%, 20%, 50%? I mean, tell me, because I know what the number is. And they don't know. They have no clue. It was something they threw out there because what is their agenda? It's a liberal agenda, isn't it? So arm yourselves with these. Go home and get your best 10 comebacks. You know, when you're talking to the media or you're talking to a politician or what have you, get your best 10 comebacks and make sure you throw it at them when the time comes. How many of you have heard of a posse comitatus? How many have not heard of posse comitatus? Hands up high. All right. Posse comitatus, a constitutional theme, a constitutional selection of words by our founding fathers that says the sheriff himself can convene a grand jury, and he can basically deputize everyone in his county over the age of 15 that he deems fit and needs for the protection of the county. Now, what does that mean? Against crooked politicians, too? What's the Second Amendment for?
Against tyranny.
Protect their house from burglars?
No, no.
No! These guys don't get that, do they? Second Amendment is so that we're armed, and they come at us and say, we're going to take away your rights. And you say, no, you're not. I'm protecting my family. Each one to his own. Did you know that in the United States it was a law, and I can't remember the date, but it was a law that every able-bodied man owned a weapon?
Yes.
You know why that was? You know why that was instituted? Because they couldn't afford to send an official out to protect your family when you lived 50 miles out of the jurisdiction or outside of the city square or the county square, county seat. So you had to be able to defend yourself and your family. Now, is that a government that creates that kind of law concerned with you? Absolutely. What happened to turn that upside down? Corruption. Everything that they're seeking and that their agenda rides on and rests on is the fact that they want to control you and your family. And they started with your children and your grandchildren. God gave us, those who would be willing to stand up against it, the idea in our head that this is not right. And he gave you the heart to say, no, I'm not going to take it. So here we are talking about it. Now the next step is to do something about it, which is why I stood up. I said, this is not right. When Beau Biden, when he was asked, what is a conservator of the peace? Now, in Delaware, Article 15 of the Constitution, state's Constitution says, the sheriff shall be the conservator of the peace throughout the county. You know what conservator of the peace means?
COP.
You ever heard the word, the acronym COP? What is it, Chris? Cop. What's a cop? It's a conservator of the peace. That's where the original acronym came from. You know, some people go, oh, it came from copper, because he's wearing a copper badge. I said, well, if in the 1800s I had a copper badge, I'd consider myself rich, because copper was it's almost like gold, you know. The guys back then, in fact, I have something similar. It looks to be old from the 20s or whatever. It was a tin badge, much like they give us today. Chris is laughing. You know, those stories you hear on TV where it stops the bullet. Don't believe it. You know, don't believe it. I had a bird hit mine one time and it almost killed me. So the idea of what our founding fathers had in mind for us was they built a system of the balance of powers. And the balance of powers is most notably at the federal level. Everybody know about that? Legislature, executive, judicial. Judicial is the courts. The courts are supposed to be the ultimate decider of conflict. Which, by the way, my political science teacher in college told me, Jeff, if you want attention, you want to change something that's not right in politics, create what? What's the word? The way he put it to me was create a fight. Create conflict. Where does the attention come? To the fight.
Yeah.
How many of you slow down when you see a fight on the side of the road? How many of you wrecked the car because you've seen a fight on the side of the road? All right, it's just the girls in the bikinis, right, for you guys. If everybody's naturally drawn to a conflict, do you agree?
Yeah.
Whether it's between mother, father, of course I'm not naturally drawn to that because she always wins. She's a black belt, by the way, in karate. That's why I have a taser. If you're drawn to a conflict, you're just like everybody else. When you go by something, you see somebody hollering and yelling, your natural instinct is to look, because is it normal? No. And that's the attitude we want to create. An abnormal response to an abnormal action. You know, now if these guys were serving us the way they should be, would there be need of a fight? No, because they would be in line with the basic conservative thinking. Everybody in the world is conservative. Everybody, because we all go back to the absolution origin of God. He created us all. So give yourself the credit for being on the line, but first, where it's decayed from is when you knock a box of cereal off of the refrigerator. Was it from order to disorder or disorder to order?
Order to disorder.
Order to disorder, especially when the kids just refuse to pick it up. So disorder just stays there, and then it becomes worse disorder because you kick it all around. It goes under the refrigerator. Then the ants come, you know, and then you got dogs digging the grout in the tile to try to get to the piece of cereal. You know, so it gets worse and worse and worse. And then you try to sell the house, the floor's rotted, right? All that kind of stuff. But it goes from order to disorder. Where are you on the scale of order as far as your stance? You're up closer to the absolution mark. An absolution mark is, just think of it as a triangle. How much room is at the top? 1 point. There's one person. Who is that? God himself. If you're up in here in the first part of that triangle, you are closer to the absolution measure by which we were all created. If you're down here,